All right, let's jump right into it. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are tackling a massive underlying challenge that is honestly facing pretty much every enterprise network today. We're talking about migrating to IPv6, and more importantly, figuring out how to actually secure a really messy dual-stack environment. Now, if you're thinking IPv6 is just tomorrow's problem, you might want to reconsider. Today, we're going to unpack exactly how to manage this transition safely, and specifically, we're going to arm you with the exact questions you must demand your SIEM vendors answer to keep both your legacy IPv4 and new IPv6 environments secure.
There's this quote that I think brilliantly captures the terrifying reality most security teams are living in right now: the protocol you enabled without a security model. See, IPv6 is already running on the vast majority of enterprise networks, cloud environments, and mobile infrastructure via auto-configuration. It's happening right now. And it is generating traffic that sits completely outside the monitoring coverage your teams have spent literally years building out for IPv4. It is just operating completely unseen.
So, we have to ask ourselves a pretty uncomfortable question. Does your SIEM actually see your IPv6 traffic? Are those incredibly expensive security tools you bought actually processing this data, or are they just silently dropping it while attackers set up shop in your blind spots? Here is our roadmap to fix this. We're going to cover the hidden IPv6 threat, the dual-stack security reality, ensuring true detection parity, writing IPv6 correlation rules, and finally, interrogating your SIEM vendor. Let's get to it.
Section 1. The hidden IPv6 threat and why waiting around for adoption is just a huge mistake. The very design of IPv6 makes security really complicated. You've got SLAC, stateless address auto-configuration, which essentially allows endpoints to just generate their own IPv6 addresses using network prefixes. No DHCP required. Combine that with privacy extensions that randomly rotate those IP addresses, and boom, your traditional DHCP tracking is completely broken. Plus, attackers know this. They are actively using tunneling protocols like Teredo and 6to4 to bypass your IPv4 perimeter rules entirely, while advanced watering hole attacks use IPv6 to quietly profile victims through browser telemetry.
It's literally a Trojan horse situation. Attackers are leveraging these protocol layer gaps that we as defenders often just brush off as edge cases. Operating under the assumption that IPv6 provides some sort of obscurity is a massive operational mistake, and adversaries are cashing in on it every single day. Moving on to Section 2, the dual-stack security reality. How do we actually operate both IPv4 and IPv6 safely?
The reality is, we can't just flip a magic switch and go 100% IPv6. We are absolutely forced into a dual-stack reality for years, mainly because we have to support all those legacy IPv4 devices. The contrast here is wild. On one hand, you have your IPv4 environment, clean, well-monitored, IPs are statically mapped or tied nicely to a DHCP lease. On the other hand, you have the operational nightmare of IPv6, SLAAC leases, constantly rotating privacy IPs, and traffic that is completely invisible to your legacy rules. And this operational nightmare is exactly why government mandates like the OMB M21-7 directive are stepping in. They are requiring that your network boundary and your SIEM tools monitor, log, and enforce IPv6 traffic natively. You absolutely must maintain interoperability with IPv4 in this dual-stack setup, but your tools need to inspect IPv6 extension headers on their own without leaning on IPv4 as a crutch. Ultimately, the required target end state for all these environments is IPv6-only operation.
Section 3. Ensuring true detection parity. This means catching the exact same attack on both networks.
Understanding detection parity is absolutely fundamental. It basically means that a monitored environment produces the exact same security outcomes, detections, and alerts totally regardless of the underlying architecture. So if a scan and exploit happens on IPv4, and then that exact same sequence happens on IPv6, your SIEM has to catch both of them with the exact same speed and fidelity. If it misses the IPv6 one, your parity is broken.
And without parity, well, your security posture just crumbles. You end up losing detection silently, you create a ton of noisy duplicate alerts, or you introduce fatal latency. And a huge warning here, do not rely on synthetic, sanitized vendor data to prove this works. You have to compare field-level parsing and end-to-end latency using your actual realistic data, because if parity fails out in the real world, your incident response speed is just totally compromised.
Section 4. Writing IPv6 correlation rules. Let's look at how we group activity across those constantly rotating addresses.
Picture this step-by-step attack chain, which shows perfectly how reconnaissance turns into exploitation. First, an attacker probes a /64 prefix, which generates ICMP failures. Then they find an active host. Next, they attempt SSH logins, fail a few times, and finally, they succeed. Now, traditional single-event detection rules are going to completely miss this bigger picture. You have to correlate these multiple events over a set window of time, say 30 minutes, to actually see the attack forming.
Because those privacy extensions I mentioned are constantly rotating the specific host IP, your SIEM has to be configured to zoom out and correlate activity at the broader /64 subnet prefix boundary. To do this efficiently, make sure you extract that /64 prefix right at data ingestion. That is going to save you big time on expensive SIEM queries later. From there, you can track lateral movement across different /64 subnets and use statistical baselines, like z-scores, to spot sudden, weird spikes in prefix activity.
And finally, Section 5. Interrogating your SIEM vendor. This is your tactical evaluation playbook.
When you are evaluating a vendor for this dual-stack reality, base your scoring heavily on these ComplyVex evaluation weights. Look at how much we are prioritizing real-world performance and false positive management. That's 30% of the weight right there. Total cost transparency is another 25%. Vendors who just hand you a basic feature checklist, yeah, they usually end up costing twice the quoted price and take half a year to deliver any actual value.
You have to constantly push back and juxtapose what vendors promise with what you actually demand. They promise native integrations? Great. Demand proof it works without third-party middleware. They offer basic log collection? Don't accept that without demanding the true storage costs for full dual-stack endpoint visibility. And whatever you do, refuse their clean, sanitized demo data. Demand that they process your actual, messy, high-volume firewall and Okta logs.
Take these exact questions into your meetings. Ask them point blank. Do you preserve full 128-bit IPv6 address fidelity, or are you just truncating it? How does your system actually handle privacy extensions breaking DHCP tracking? What happens to search latency when log volumes spike to 150% during an actual incident? You have to prove if their platform is truly IPv6 ready or if they're just going to bury you in false positives.
Oh, and do not forget about your threat intelligence. If you're bringing your own custom threat intel into the SIEM, verify that the primary keys in their reference tables can natively process and support 128-bit IPv6 indicators in CSV format, exactly like they do for legacy IPv4. Because if they can't, your logs simply won't get enriched and your alerts are going to fail.
Which really brings us to our final thought for today. When the inevitable breach happens, will your SIEM even be looking at the right network? Take these questions to your next vendor meeting. Make absolutely sure your data collection, your correlation rules, and your SIEM evaluations are fully dual-stack ready, because simply waiting around for IPv6 adoption is no longer a defense strategy. It's a massive, gaping vulnerability.